This meeting is being recorded.
Miller? Here. English? Here. McEvers? Here. Wood? Here. Evans? Here. Kukin?
Hartfield with a One Place Church with us tonight. Welcome, Pastor.
Pray with me. Heavenly Father, thank you for the grace and the mercy that followed us into this day. And thank you for, in times like we're living now, for where we live and where you've put us. And thank you for this council, for a mayor. And God, we pray that tonight you would give them wisdom. You would give them strength in the area of where they're weak and labored and tired from the heavy lifting they're doing and leading this great city. We pray for your just continued hand on this city and the leadership, and that wisdom would reign in all decisions. We pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Woody, you can lead us in the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have one adjustment to the agenda tonight. Under the presentations, item number 2 has been removed, and we're going to schedule something at a future date to discuss that item. So that's the only amendment we have tonight to the agenda. Now is the time for public comment. Anyone wishing to address the council shall have 3 minutes. We don't have our clock in here. They're going to time it from the booth, so they'll give you a warning when there's 30 seconds left. So anyone wishing to give public comment can come on up. Who would like to go first?
I would love to go first.
So you have 3 minutes.
3 minutes. I wasn't sure about that, so I wrote down a few words to make it real short and sweet. I think I sent you all an introduction. My name is Lester Monty Cook III, and 2 years ago I created a movement called the Be Fantastic Movement. So they nicknamed me Dr. Fantastic because I bring smiles and I like to. The movement is about pollinating positivity and cultivating civility. So with that introduction, by the way, this is my 109th day on tour. Every day I meet new people and new places, and I interview them, and I have a fantastic time showing what a great country we have and what great people we have in it. And we do live, the negative part is we do live in a greedy, selfish, litigious society. I'm out to change that with this Be Fantastic movement. So with that said, this should be in my 3 minutes. It's titled Good versus Fantastic, and words matter. The question, how are you, was first shouted from a great distance to save your life. It was during the Black Plague, where over 200 million people died. Kind of apropos today, although luckily not that many people are dying. Today, it is a rhetorical question asked every day, in every country, to everyone as a greeting. Try answering, I am fantastic, whether you are or not. The word fantastic forces a smile, which releases neuromessaging impulses that make you feel fantastic. The smile makes you look fantastic, and smiling reduces stress. Science says each time you smile or laugh, you extend your life by 5 minutes. And I think we need to extend our lives. I think we need less stress, if you ask me. If you agree words matter, the word good is bland and has no energy. The word fantastic is defined in the dictionary as unimaginably good and beautiful, and it passes on positive energy. Teach your children this as it builds their self-esteem and confidence. Being fantastic will make you look better, feel better, live longer. You'll be more successful in business, and it'll help make our world a kinder, more civil place. It's a simple, simple thing. In the 109 days I've been traveling around this country, this is the most fantastic city I've run into. And I applaud you for having such a beautiful lake and beautiful people. And I actually went down Sherman and gave that flyer that I gave you guys to every company on the street. And I got a great amount of response. The mayor's wife, Marie, became my 360th ambassador of positivity. And I'm proud to say now we have over 424 ambassadors of positivity. This Marine just joined. Where is she? There she is. This Marine just joined as a 424th ambassador. She's fantastic. This city, I want to set the standard of how all cities should respect their visitors and themselves and their customers by, instead of saying have a good day at the end of a transaction, I bought an ice cream today. She said have a good day. I've been buying a lot of stuff in the city, and every single one of them said have a good day after I left. Have a fantastic day. Imagine having a fantastic day. I want you all to have a fantastic meeting tonight. The word fantastic means unimaginably good and beautiful. Thank you for your time. And you guys are fantastic. The city.
Thank you, Dr. Fantastic.
Thank you. That was fantastic. Thank you.
Made me smile.
Next up for public comment. Come on up. If you could please give just your name for the record, please.
Nicole Ellis.
Okay.
So, obviously, the death of George Floyd ignited controversy across the nation. It also brought light to issues within our own community, issues I feel like the council blatantly ignores. Now, you not only allowed, but applauded an illegally armed militia that walked around and harassed, intimidated, and yelled racial slurs and threatened protesters. The same militia that was praised. It raised concerns by the real world so much that the Georgetown University of Law Center even reached out to us. You either refuse to or lack the balls to acknowledge that in your own law enforcement's inadequacies and failures as a department, and you fail to hold anyone accountable, basically supporting these flaws. My journey with this began when the police department shot my son, Tyler Rambo. He's a human being with his Second Amendment rights, but he was gunned down and criminalized in the classic victim-blaming tactic. You painted him out to be every black stereotype out there, and then let racism do the rest. For being leaders, you've shown zero acknowledgement in any of these issues, legal and not, which makes you terrible officials, and your position's completely useless. You can't ignore these problems forever, but you should feel fortunate that we have and will continue to protest peacefully.
Thank you. Next up for public comment. Come on up.
Hi, I'm Allie Shute with the Coeur d'Alene Arts and Culture Alliance. I'm the executive director. And first of all, I would like to thank the mayor and the city council members for their quick response to the social media storm over the New Jack City concert last Thursday. I also want to apologize to the Kootenai County Democrats for their sponsored concert becoming distorted by misinformation, name-calling, and harassment. As supporters of the arts, we have welcomed their sponsorship for the last 3 years, and their agenda is nothing more than to register voters and hand out root beer floats. Our board chair has written a statement that has been approved by our board of directors in response. For several years, I have witnessed the many volunteers and board members of the Coeur d'Alene Arts and Culture Alliance dedicate their time to provide our community with quality and engaging events in the spirit of our mission to promote, strengthen, embrace, and elevate art and culture. There have been lots of comments regarding the recent and unfortunate cancellation of the Thursday summer concert event scheduled for July 16th featuring New Jack City. Like many local nonprofit organizations, the Coeur d'Alene Arts and Culture Alliance relies on sponsored funds to provide our local events. The Coeur d'Alene Arts and Culture Alliance does not endorse or claim any political affiliation. While we are in unprecedented times, we can assure you that we have stated from the beginning that masks are required upon entry and when moving about, and we are monitoring the social distancing as well. Security is present along with the many wonderful volunteers who work tirelessly to provide an evening of safe enjoyment in our beautiful outdoors. The decision for New Jack City to cancel their performance is supported by the Arts and Culture Alliance, and we hope to see them energize our souls with their music again next year. We will continue to work towards providing our community with fun and safe events in the future. Sincerely, Andreas John, Board Chair, Coeur d'Alene Arts and Culture Alliance. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. Next up for public comment, come on up.
My name is Jeanette Laster, and I'm the Executive Director of the Human Rights Education Institute. Mayor Widmer, council members, city staff, and public in attendance, there is a quote from the late John Robert Lewis that is most relevant today. I believe in freedom of speech, but I also believe that we have an obligation to condemn speech that is racist, bigoted, anti-Semitic, or hateful. On behalf of the HREI Board of Directors and community, I would like to thank you all for your immediate, unified response following the cancellation of the summer concert at Riverstone this past week due to disturbing literature, threatening statements designed to disrupt this community event, and unacceptable racial memes on social media. In your response, we heard a clear and concise message of no tolerance for racism and hateful actions in Coeur d'Alene. The hijacking of community events by political extremists and those who subscribe to white nationalist views is becoming a pattern that affects our economic vitality. The perpetrators have no consideration for the values of others and are clearly acting to instill fear and intimidation in the citizens of our community. We saw this during protest demonstrations, again on July 4th, and again when the Riverstone concert was canceled. We also see it around dialogue for mask wearing. These individuals are often uninformed and spawn social media frenzies with influential, inflammatory language. Our nonprofits work hard to provide programs that benefit the community at large for free, and they cost money to develop and arrange. We are in a time where we have all lost essential revenue due to COVID-19 cancellations and postponements. With much of the community looking to participate in an approved, safe, family-oriented outdoor activity, it is shameful that a few feel the need to spoil such a great summer tradition. Some members of our community could never afford to attend a paid concert of this kind. For HREI and other organizations that work in diversity, equity, and inclusion, we know that the work will never be completely done and needs our vigilance. And for you, it may feel like it never ends, especially under our current climate, but it is worth it for every human to feel welcomed here. Just this morning, I was made aware of a family member of someone affiliated with HREI recently visiting that was born and raised here in Coeur d'Alene, whose wife received derogatory targeting based on her gender status. She was simply walking her dog downtown. This young professional couple would love to return to raise their family in beautiful Coeur d'Alene and be close to other family members, but they do not feel safe here. Although our team believes that racism is the minority in this town, it is becoming increasingly more frustrating to our local citizens because these racists have a loud, destructive, and unsettling voice in our community. This voice continues to be emboldened by prejudiced individuals and hate groups, active hate groups, and the presence of any racism is too much. HREI asks you, as city leadership, do not let up on this clear and concise, no tolerance messaging during this critical time. We must continue to actively work together to find common values that will bring our citizens together and create more compelling, inclusive, and long-loving vision for our community. Our message of love needs to be loud right now and stand above all else, locally, regionally, nationally, because we know that love does live here.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to give public comment tonight? Okay, so we will move on to the presentations. The first one is it's fiscal year 2020-2021 budget information update. Troy.
Good day, Mayor and Council. I bring you information, no decision necessary, and you have been working on this plan for quite a few hours, and I want to thank you for your inputs. The city staff has been working on this as well. At your next council meeting, the first one in August, the staff will be bringing forward the high water mark. So what I'd like to share with you is the opportunity of savings that we continue to look for and the whittling that we've done. When we started this process with you, we were at $103,916,071. At our last get-together, we started to bring you all the modifications that continued to happen. You have seen this. I think our health insurance situation is phenomenal news. It is a slight increase in year over year. However, the net effect to the city of Coeur d'Alene is your expense for medical insurance will go down. So you have seen all of these numbers. I share that with you because you made the very important decision to go to a self-funded trust, and you put $1.4 million from your fund balance over into the trust, which is a separate entity. We have been taking down any and all areas that we're able to save money. So we have proposed no new sergeant's positions. We have proposed the property specialist position be reduced. Code enforcement, part-time specialist in the fire department, library reference clerk position, and the drainage budget changes. So during that first round that you have been a party to, we modified the financial plan by reducing about $350,000 from the general fund. The drainage fund is a separate entity. So since we got together last and you gave us a couple of tasks, we have been looking for more reductions. So we have gone through a number of line items and looking and negotiating. The negotiation would be finance. We've negotiated no increase in the audit services that we had anticipated. Travel and training in finance has been whittled away. When we take a department like finance and look at saving 5% in services and supplies, it is extremely challenging. It's undoable actually, because that department has the payment for our insurance to iCrimp. So that is a large premium. They don't have that much in services and supplies. Audit services sits in there as well. So we bring you good news on savings. The big number on this page, of course, is the police department. It is our largest department. Working with the chief and all the admin over there, a 5% decrease, which is a challenge to do in that department, is $80,000. So streets was moving the number, looking at every dollar in there. And so when we add up what we have proposed to cut, that's another $106,000 in the general fund. Of course, we didn't stop there. We asked the library to look at all of their line items. Water was very aggressive in taking some of its services and supplies down, along with wastewater, two very large departments. So that's another $221,000 in other funds. That doesn't positively impact our cash flow to the general fund, which is the one that we are focusing on because it is not positively cash flowing. So these numbers are what we have brought forward. So when I take the first round of cuts, add that to the second round of cuts, we're pushing $687,000 that we have been attempting to modify this plan to. With that, we have a couple other things that we want to bring up. Let me talk a little bit about fund balance. As administrator, we had proposed in the current financial plan, the second line item there, that we would use our fund balance this year. So we're going to take and estimate what our fund balance will be. So that's $1 million in the current financial plan, the current year, that we were anticipating to need for cash flow. I'm hopeful it's not quite there, but I need to forecast for you a conservative number. Medical trust, you approved that. That has worked very well. That's good news. That's $1.4 million that came out of the fund balance. I apologize. We had not included this Sherman Avenue transaction of $310 that you had approved that came out of fund balance because it carried year over year. And so as we dial right down to the detail of every detail, we're proposing that. You have a couple of retirements happening, proposed to happen, that will have an impact. Most of the time, throughout the past number of years, we've been able to handle that because of fund balance, because they retire mid-year. Well, we have at least one retirement that is proposed to be the last day of the fiscal year. So we're proposing a couple $100,000 coming out of fund balance. So if we were asked to propose what the fund balance will be as of 9/30/2020, we'd put it at about 6.1 million. You did a lot of discussion about the financial plan, asked lots of good questions, and said that you were comfortable with about $1.5 million coming out of fund balance to fund the general fund in the next fiscal year. So when we look at that, that would bring our fund balance down to about 10.7% of our total budget. That's pushing the envelope a little bit. So what I'd like to share with you is that whatever good things we can continue to do as we bring forward the high water mark and you contemplate taking a 3%, a 2%, a 1%, a 0% property tax increase, is my recommendation that whatever we can come up with revenue-wise, whether it be property taxes, whether it be a little bit of a bonus coming from the state, if that comes together. We don't have an answer on that yet. We hope to have it this Thursday or Friday about the opting out of property taxes and what the state is going to do and getting the stamp of approval. That I would suggest to you that if we can spend less than $1.5 million by taking any of these savings, that we do that as opposed to taking our fund balance down to 4.6 million, so we're going to need cash next year to fund operations. 85% of our general fund is in wages and benefits, and those are ongoing expenses. We are really tightened up on services and supplies, and we are really, really tight on capital. So I don't have very many one-time expenses as your administrator that I can identify dollars for. Most of our expenses, being the awesome people that we have, are ongoing. So we have a couple of savings with retirements. That's good news. However, it is tough to sustain this. And if we did not have an urban renewal district closing and an opportunity for that type of a option for what we'll call new growth, we would potentially be looking at trimming our staffing. It's the only way to have that type of a positive effect. If I were to bring the cuts to, say, Jobs Plus, Panhandle Area Council in 2030, the Jobs Plus annual contribution is $25,000, 5%'s $1,250. We could take $5,000 from them. Panhandle Area Council, it's only a $5,180 per year. If we took $5,000 from them, that would whittle it way down. They've just had some really good success in bringing dollars to our community and our area. And then 2030 is allocated at $45,000 for the year. So a 5% decrease would be $2,250. For detail purposes, the Downtown Association contract is paid from the parking fund. So that wouldn't have a positive impact on the general fund, which is what I'm extremely focused on for you this evening as you look to guide us in this process as well as understand the cutting that's taking place. As we look at overtime in our big departments, if we cut that significantly, at least a few of us get really nervous because they may need that, and we're already relying on fund balance. So we haven't whittled away at constant manning and fire overtime in our police department because we have a real good track history of what they've been spending. So cutting that substantially could get us into a challenge for fund balance, and we're already looking and relying on $1.5 million in the projection. So I just wanted to be the bearer of bad news. I think I've done a really good job, Mr. Mayor, and would stand for any questions.
Council questions. Christie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Troy, last time we were together, there was a consensus that we would focus on public safety. And what you presented, you've cut out every ounce of that. Fire's position was self-funded through revenue they would bring in.
We kept that in.
Oh, you cut something else from them.
I did, at admin, I proposed to cut. You get the final word on that.
Thank you.
We've kept that as a final proposal.
And then the two sergeants' positions, we've talked about at the police department that you're going to continue to pay, we are going to continue to pay overtime to fill those positions. So I don't know why we would shy away from public safety. I think you've done a nice job in trimming in a lot of areas. $80,000 from the police department supplies, I can't imagine what's left. But I think you've done overall a fairly good job, except the commitment to public safety, there was a consensus at the last meeting. So I'd like to see those come back.
And that would be the two sergeants,
And the fire position.
So that's an admin position?
I think, Christie, the one thing that we can look at is, as Troy mentioned, is that we do have potentially the $105,000 that if that state situation goes through, we would have that $105,000 that would come back into our budget, and that is earmarked for public safety. So that could potentially be a source, if it is proven that that program works, that 105,000 would come back, because it's not in the plan right now. So that would help that situation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, correct.
And related to that discussion, something I read today that, and I forget where, but I think in one of the governor's addresses or something. But anyway, what I picked up on is that because of the numbers of cities and counties that have, applied and said we'd do it, that there was more requests than they would have. And what I read, I think, was that, instead of getting, I think we had it pegged at like 103%, it was like 40-some percent. What do you know about that?
Thank you, Council Member. Yes, there appears to be more demand for the dollars than was anticipated. So we're not sure that we would be able to get the $1.7 million that we put in there. And then, of course, the 103% of that 1.7 would get us the $100 and some thousand, which we have not included as cash or revenue at this point till we find out. So I would suggest they're saying that maybe $700,000 might be in the neighborhood that we could receive, but we won't know anything until.
That's a dramatic difference.
It is, and so that will impact our levy rate as well versus what we had forecasted.
Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I will agree with Christie. I'd like to see the sergeants put back. I think that it's going to help the police department, and I know there's going to be some savings there, not enough to cover. I also would like to thank Administration, Finance, HR, Police and Streets, and Building for bringing up some of the cuts that we asked for. Appreciate those. Didn't see anything from Parks, Legal, Municipal Services, or Planning, even though we asked everyone to look for things to be cut. I have a question. It's a curious question. I don't know if this is something that can be done or not, but a lot of the expense in parks is the water that we charge ourselves to water the parks. It's a big number. Is there any way that we can have, and I know if we all of a sudden say, well, we're not going to charge ourselves for the water, then everyone else, the schools and the churches and all the nonprofits are not going to want to pay for water either. Is there any way we can have a municipal water rate that can be set lower in order to save us that cost? How does that work?
It's a great question. It would really be easy to do if we would use water in the off-season. However, the parks need the water at the most expensive time, and it would be a great balance if we could water our lawns for the parks in the winter because we don't have the demand. So that could be looked at in a rate study. The water department has been a great partner. Your Atlas waterfront park is going to be pulled out of the Spokane River thanks to water rights and save us a lot of money. So we continue to look for that. But you're correct. As an enterprise fund, it needs the fee for service to cover those charges. And Mr. Pickle is here, so I hope I did a good job with that.
So Christy, let me get, and Dan, let me get back to so the 2 sergeants is $249,646 is the cost of that. If we were to maintain the level of the fund balance that we're going to take this year, which is $1.5 million. So we have the 2020, 2021 budget use of fund balance of $1.5 million. So to do that 249, if that's council's wish, then we would have to go and find cuts or revenue to help fund that 200, we'll just call it 250.
So my proposal would be we look at whether or not we can get that 3% increase over the property taxes we would have asked for, and then work really hard on a good pro forma in overtime in the police department to have that $100,000+ savings, which is hard to forecast, but that would be the way I would propose to bridge that if you asked me it right now, right here.
Yeah, Christy will.
And I would just say, for revenue purposes, I've pretty much been on the record that there are times we will have to take a property tax increase. This might be one of those years. I think this city's been amazing in trying not to do that. But we might just be at that point where we're going to have to do something.
So the next time that we're going to get together and talk budget, Vonnie has already worked through the high water mark, so we've set that, and we made the decision last time that we're going to set that high water mark at 3%, knowing that if this whole governor's plan comes together, we're going to be at 0, right? So when would be the next opportunity? So if it's council's pleasure to add some expenses back in, where we are going to stick to that $1.5 million that we're taking out of fund balance, when would we have the next opportunity to talk about that? Would that be, maybe there's 2 separate budget issues. Number 1 would be the presentation of the high water mark, and then at our next meeting in August, correct?
Correct.
And then number 2 maybe would be talk about, okay, how, if it's council's pleasure to add both of those in, and we may not be able to afford both of them. We may be able to afford one, but if the council's goal is, if that's the consensus, that they would like to add back 2, Troy can go back and see what they can do. Is that, I guess we want to get a consensus and give Troy some direction.
Do we have the opportunity, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, KT.
Do we have the opportunity to discuss that before we get into the high water mark discussion, or is that going to be part of the presentation? And will that include the information that you're going to find out on Thursday regarding that funding from the state? 1, 2, 3.
Answer the last question first. So we hope for the yes to that last question on what is happening with the state. We would propose to bring to you another slide growing from where we've gone and put those positions up there that would be expenses, because you haven't made the official decision on property taxes. So I see that as a potential funding source for this to help the $1.5 million stay steady. If we took property taxes, be new revenue, we can put that in there. That's where the high water mark will include it. Hopefully we have another, I'll say $105,000 based on our forecast of revenue that the state would provide if we opted out of taking the 0%, so that we can look at those changes. So I would suggest to you it'll be pretty minimal number of changes from where we're at, and we'll work with the police department one more time on overtime is a big challenge to figure out where it'll be. Does that answer your question?
No.
Dan.
Well, one more of the fine tuning of, you mentioned about, like with some of those outside folks, Panhandle Health, and that we pay something to. And I know there was some discussion then, and I guess I would like to raise that again as potentially a preferred method of taking whatever we had budgeted for them and doing a flat 10% cut, so that the folks that, were at 5,100 or something, then it's about $500 cut. The ones who are 40, some thousand, then they're 4,000 or 5,000. So that's something I guess I would still like to look at as a preferred approach.
Okay.
I agree.
So we've looked at that, a 10% haircut, if I can use that word, 10% reduction for Jobs Plus Panhandle Area Council in 2030 would be $7,518. And that's a general fund. And then the parking fund would have a downtown association contract modification, which would equal $5,200, just for numbers that we've been looking at as well.
Well, and again, that's kind of a separate basis, so.
Correct.
Christie, did you have something?
Yeah, just curious on that, the parking fund though, but we can use that for public safety, correct?
Yes, we have dedicated dollars for public safety, such as the revenue generated for parking at the 4th of July.
So that $5,000 would matter, that if we, from the Downtown Business Association, if there was a trim.
Wouldn't help our general fund cash flow, because it comes out of the parking fund.
But the parking fund can be transferred for public safety?
If we can rationalize it, yes. Meaning we have to justify how that expense ties into the parking.
Chief, Woody, go ahead.
Sure.
Yep, go ahead.
So a couple things. First off, I'm real uncomfortable using fund balance like this because it's forever. And fund balance is our bailout. Usually it's where we go when we have a problem or have to put out a big fire. If you really needed to cut in 2008 when the economy slammed us, we cut raises. We held everybody hold tight, went to the employees. 85% of our business is employees. So we cut the merits, freeze the salary increases. I mean, that's going to do the most good right away without hitting fund balance. If next year doesn't change and then you guys want to go to fund balance again, we're already taking it. I get a little concerned and probably a little conservative on having that money there, and the magic number is 15% or whatever it is, and it's just, we're kind of setting up a premise that this is okay. We can just take fund balance to keep ourselves going, and I don't remember us ever doing that, ever, in my 19 whatever. But the point is that that's one-time money. Well, it's not one-time money if you're giving people raises and you're keeping everything going, and I get it. I want things to be good. Speaking of public safety, Christie, this council has supported public safety top of the line every year. Public safety has never, ever given up anything, nothing, ever asked for a cut, a reduction, always. And that's what we were asking for this year. Give us some space. Let us get through this tough time. This is a tough time, and it's not going to end next year, is my concern. I mean, yeah, we got a big glob of money coming in 2 or 3 years from now, but here we are now. Do we want to keep taking it, and can't we just kind of hold on like all the guys in business? We're all in survival mode. We're not buying stuff. We're not hiring people. We're just trying to get by. We don't know what this is going to do. Sorry, I'm rambling. I have a tendency to ramble. It's from the heart, you guys. You know, we've been here. Dan, you've been here. We've all been here, and we do a good job. And this is a little scary to be going after fund balance like that. I'm sorry.
And I agree with you, Wood. We can't take another $1.5 million out of fund balance next year. I mean, when we're down to 4.6, I'd like to see that closer to 5. I mean, we're dipping into that fund balance for ongoing expenses, which is never a good idea to do. So I share your concern there. We'll go to Dan, and then Chris, will come back to you.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. So Troy, if Woody's idea, which I'm going to grab and run with, what would the savings be if we decided to suspend merit increases in COLA? Not the process, I know that would be messy, but what dollar amount are we talking about?
In Vonnie's presentation to council is where I am going.
I have got it right here, Troy. Merit increase is $527,000. So of the total increases, merit increase is $527,000. Contracted COLA is 685, and then contracted wage adjustment is 160.
Thank you.
Are those cumulative?
Yes. So Percy really helped out this year. That was a $342,000 positive change.
So that's altogether with the, with those numbers the mayor just rattled off, I'm getting $1.3 million.
And then we quickly turned around and saved $300,000 in Percy and had a slight decrease in medical, was the slide that we are referencing.
And how much are we dipping into fund balance?
$1.5 million.
1.5.
Christie, go ahead.
Thank you. Woody, you know I love you. I'm going to push back a little bit. So as far as public safety never taking any cuts, I worked there years and years and years without police cars. The fire department does the safety bond every few years so that we can get the things we need. The employees, back in 2008, police and fire stepped up and Lake City came on board,
Right.
and they offered to give back their 3% negotiated COLA. So I would say there have been plenty of instances and years and years and years without the equipment that we actually needed to get by. So I guess I just wouldn't characterize it they don't pitch in, because this sergeant's position isn't about a want, it's about a need. We have officers that need supervision, and what's happening now, especially with the COVID, is because there's so many exposures and quarantines that patrolmen are being brought up as temporary sergeants to fill that supervision role. They haven't been given the permanent role, but it's a temporary because you have to have supervision. So I guess I wouldn't characterize that they never give, and these sergeants' positions aren't a luxury. It's a supervision model that needs to be in place.
Almost any department, and I hear you, I remember 2008, everybody stepped up. Also remember that after everybody gave it, they got it back. We just kicked it down the road again. So I get it. We've asked everybody to pull together here many times over the years. I remember when you guys didn't have police cars, the old beaters and stuff, I mean, everybody gives. I'm just making, my point is, we have to look at this as a moment in time that I think is somewhat critical because of COVID and because of all the weirdness, and we don't know where we're going. And our folks, our citizens, are as freaked out as anybody. They don't know where they're going. The economy's booming, property values are going crazy, it's just such a weird time. I'm a great believer in let's hold on, let's try not to raise taxes, be good stewards, and cut and lean and freeze everything. Just hold on and let's just see, because we have at least 2 more years before we can even think about urban renewal, which will save the day, no question about it. It'll give us a new boost. You lived through that with the NIC. Once you break away from all that, or in your case you guys took what was the foregons, it changes your whole forevermore.
Right.
We're not in forevermore, is how I see it, so.
And I would counter that with, you can't go on forever with a 0% tax increase. And in
Agreed.
fact, the numbers that have been provided to us show that if we took a 1, 2, or 3%, whichever one it is, our citizens are actually paying less because of the property valuations that have gone up. So I admire the effort that's gone on by this council. I'm just saying I don't think it's a long-term forever to take a 0%.
Right.
So would council like to have Troy go back and have some discussions with the labor groups in regards to this, or would they not? So Troy's going to need some direction. Does council would like Troy to go back? He can go back. He was back. You were here in 2008, Troy. So you were part of that process. So I guess Troy would need some direction. Does council want him to go back to the labor groups and have a discussion, or not?
I think they're always open to discussion, and so it's healthy discussion. Why not?
And I guess if Troy does go back, and have a discussion, they're going to say, okay, if I'm giving up something, what are you guys going to use it for? And so what we're saying is if they give up something, we're going to put that back into public safety. Is that the message?
I would think that that would be what their interest would be.
Okay. So is the entire council comfortable with that? Is that, and it's just a negotiation, it's just a starting point. I'll just give you an example, I did some quick math, is that the contracted COLA is 2.5%. 1% of that COLA equals $270,000. So if they were to negotiate, instead of taking 2.5%, if they took 1.5%, that would be $270,000.
And Mr. Mayor, another option is maybe just to delay the implementation of the COLA for 6 months, and I think the math on that is around 300 and some thousand. So they're not giving up a 1% forever, a delay for 6 months. Just something to talk about.
So the number that I'm getting that we would like to add to public safety is 250, and that Troy could be charged of how, if he's going to go back to the labor groups, of how he could fund $250,000.
I think it's a little higher than that. Fire department also has a position that Troy cut out. And that was what, 45,000?
45,599, yep.
Okay, so that's a total of 300,000. Was council comfortable with giving Troy? Oh, go ahead, what?
So 300,000, and we're asking the merit increase a shortened time, right? Oh, you're saying time. They'll get it back. I mean, it's not like we're taking it, we're kicking it down the road. 6 months isn't going to cover the 250, is it?
I think it's like 300 and some thousand.
350, or what, yeah.
Yeah, if you delayed the 200, if instead of October 1, you gave the COLA 6 months down the road, that would save half of that 6.
So the question then is there a revenue income where we might have had to juggle, or things got better, or some of the projections now come through differently that would help compensate it? I just think we're all putting all our beans in one can for public health, public safety, and I get it, but I still think that there's better ways to go about it, and I'm having a hard time supporting it, and I might be the only one, and it's nothing personal. It's just, we've gone this far, and I know it costs me, it's cheaper to pay the overtime. Do you know that, right?
Oh, is it?
One more year, I know it sucks, and it's not efficient, but if you don't have the money, you knuckle down, right?
I would also suggest that maybe a good conversation with the chief of police and what direction he'd like to see it go.
Well, should I guess what he wants to see?
Well, no. I mean, I would guess at the risk of having his employees take a pay cut to fund 2 sergeants, he might not want to be in that discussion.
I hear you.
So.
I know it's a tough one. I just think we're hung up on it, and I just go, is this the best we can do?
Dan English.
Oh, well, to answer your question, for me, am I comfortable with it? No, but do I think Troy should have the discussion? Yes. I mean, this is, we're going to have to look at extraordinary steps for an extraordinary time, and, and of course then there's the third bargaining groups. I don't know how that fits in, and but anyway, yes, I think should at least explore every avenue.
Mr. Mayor, I'll just add on what Dan said. Am I comfortable with it? Like Dan, no. But I do think we should turn over every rock and explore every option. So I would support Troy moving forward, exploring the option. Is it perfect? No. Is it something we want to do? No. But I'd like to see what Troy can bring back and just see if it is an option. Again, exploring.
Troy, do you have enough direction?
I believe I do. I'm looking for $300,000, correct?
Yep. Yes.
I have a number. I can work with numbers.
All right, any other, and that would be lessened if if it came from 300, if the 100 and something came through, it would lessen that $300,000 number. Any other questions for Troy on this? All right, thank you, Troy. Now we will go, we skipped over the roles and responsibilities, and we'll go to announcements. Dan Gookin, you had an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this comes from KMPO, which is the Kootenai Metropolitan Planning Organization that oversees transportation in the county. And I wanted to give council a heads up on what's coming before us in our August meeting, that we're going to be discussing a resolution to put a measure on the ballot for what's called the local Kootenai County vehicle registration fee. And as you know, transportation is pretty much the number one way we find growth in the county painful. It's, waiting at traffic lights, finding a lot of congestion. A lot of this problem is that we have not spent money on our transportation infrastructure for the past 30 years. As Glenn Miles, who's our executive director at KMPO, would say, if you didn't put your head on a pillow here in the 1970s, then you're not paying for what you're using on the roads. There's a lot of ways to solve this. This registration fee increase would be a local tax. It would be very targeted, so this is not just something that's going to be spent willy-nilly. It has to be spent on projects. It would be a $50 increase on your vehicle registration, which we don't think is too terrible, but this would bring in enough funding that, along with federal matching, would be able to complete almost $800 million worth of transportation infrastructure for the next 20 years, which would go ahead and solve a lot of problems, and problems we know that are coming. I hope to be involved with this outreach effort that's coming, and I just wanted to give council a heads up that this will be coming, and I will be obsessed about it, so you can prepare yourselves. Thank you.
You obsessed about anything? Is that possible? Kiki, you had something.
Actually, I do. Thank you. I have three things, and I'll start with the most important. This was a message that I'd like to share with you. It's with tremendous sadness that we announce the passing of former council member Chris Kopstead. Chris served the city of Coeur d'Alene and its citizens as a council member from 1996 to 2004 and was a very dedicated public servant. Chris is most notably remembered for his service as a council member and on the City Parks and Recreation Commission, and for his passion for cycling. He was also an Ironman. He was a kind man who had a smile for everyone and an unwavering commitment to do whatever he could to make our community a better place. And I will share that in the last decade or so, Chris was a business partner of mine, and I will personally miss his smile and his friendship. So our condolences go out to Chris's family and friends during this sad time. He will be greatly missed.
Thank you, Kiki.
Maybe I should have done that one last. So last week, I wanted to share with council that I made a presentation to the Ignite board with Jennifer Drake regarding a one-time bridge grant for the performing arts entities. Some of these who could literally be facing a permanent shutdown during this COVID situation. This program is quite specific to those professional organizations who have staff, compensate their performers, and can demonstrate an economic impact within the URD. There's some other eligibility requirements as well. So I'd like to thank Councilmember Gookin for his support in that initiative, as well as Councilmember Evans, who's the Arts Commission liaison. And the board, Ignite board, unanimously supported moving that program forward. The Arts Commission will be preparing the grant application with Ignite's assistance. They hope to have submissions available in August and selections made in September, with the Ignite board approving the final grant recipients. So it was a good program, and I really appreciate Ignite and you guys' support for moving that forward. So the last thing I have is I've been working for this last about 7 days with a collaborative group of major regional entities that are endorsing and supporting a Wear a Mask initiative. I sort of believe that when we unite as a community, folks will do the right thing and wear a mask when they can't safely socially distance and help keep businesses open and our citizens safe. So the City of Coeur d'Alene, the City of Post Falls, Panhandle Health District, Kootenai Health, Heritage Health, School District 271, School District 273, North Idaho College, and Knutson Chevrolet to date have signed on to the joint leaders of the Wear a Mask campaign. Tomorrow, a mass distribution. It's moved very quickly, but this is the first sample you'll see of it. A mass distribution of a small sign will be sent out along with a press release, and it will announce the details of the beginning of the campaign. By the end of this week, a billboard and a digital signage plan will be in place. This media that is planned right now includes 10-second spots for regional airing in multimedia, alerting our neighbors that we are asking them to wear a mask when visiting North Idaho. The messaging will be strongly directed, pointing out to vast groups of businesses and organizations behind the ask. The message will be flexible to the market areas both inside and outside of Kootenai County and the changing conditions as things in our political and medical environment change. There are currently volunteers who are poised to share the message via this self-printable small sign to civics group, business associations, churches, businesses, and individuals, and asking them to print and post the sign immediately in their support of wearing a mask. There's more details to come in the time that follows, but that is what I've been up to.
Council, I have any questions for Kiki on that? She's done a ton of work on it, and she's pulled together a lot of people, a lot of the local agencies, and made a great decision that this needed to be not just the City of Coeur d'Alene's message, but a joint message from the entire community and everyone in the county. So thank you very much for stepping up and doing that. And we are also using CARES Act funds that the City of Coeur d'Alene has been awarded from the federal government to
As
help.
are others.
As others, yes. Thank you, Kiki. Anyone else? Woody?
Just a couple things. Lake City Center Bob Small has jumped back to Canada. So
What?
he has left us in good shape. He has trained a gal, Marlis Style, to be his step-in. So he's been there 2.5 years. I think there was a thing in the paper. So we said goodbye to him today and wished him well and thanked him for all he has done for the center. It's like a new, clean place and stuff now. The other one, Chris, thinking about Chris Kopstead. He was also the first EMS representative from the city. EMS was created in 2001, and Chris was on the board, and I've been sitting in his spot ever since. I just want to knock him. The other one is my funny story about Chris. Cats. Back in that time, about 2003, people were coming into council meetings and talking about cats, their neighbor cats coming over and pooping in their garden, and they were just very upset, and it became a big deal, right? And Chris came up with this great idea to put cats on leashes, and it just totally made sense, but it was kind of his downfall, and he didn't get reelected. So every time I think of Chris, I think of cats, and I know he's looking down smiling.
Well, just so you know, I had a neighbor catch me at the mailbox today to say, got this problem and, with the cats running loose. And I said, oh, that's kind of ironic. They were talking about that. And so I guess some of the interest hasn't totally died out.
Did you get a leash out, Dan?
Thank you, Woody.
We're thinking about you, Chris.
Anyone else? Dan, English.
Okay, well, if everybody, mine will probably be a bit more lengthy, so if folks have done the rest of theirs, I guess, preface by my comments, and I hope to have discussion that I appreciate everybody on the council and everybody is coming at all of this things we deal with, the budget, from their own personal convictions that I certainly appreciate and acknowledge that we might have different viewpoints, but we all hold them, I think honestly. But I am concerned with the spread of COVID-19 and would like to discuss what Coeur d'Alene city government can do to minimize that spread. My position and understanding around this issue is informed and particularly by statements and recommendations coming out from the CDC, Panhandle Health, and Kootenai Medical Center. These bodies have always been widely respected as a source of valid health information. So this is some of the information that they've shared that I in turn am going to share, and then some of my own thoughts. Face coverings, particularly cloth face masks, are effective in reducing the spread. This disease is spread when respiratory droplets from infected individuals are shared with uninfected individuals. This can occur when even the infected person has no symptoms and doesn't know he or she is ill. Masks prevent the sharing of these droplets. This disease is dangerous. It is different and worse than the seasonal flu. The CDC studies show a much higher rate of infection. Regardless of the final mortality rate, some of those who recover will still do so with long-term deficits, like amputations, lung damage, and strokes. Just because they had it and got over it doesn't mean at all that they're guaranteed to be on easy street. Today, we learned that our ICU at Kootenai Health is at capacity. This affects not only those COVID symptoms which may worsen to the point that they need this level of care, but it also affects anybody who may need ICU care for other things. And I did confirm as of about 4 o'clock that, yes, their status was still full. And then, a secondary concern of that I read, and again from my old world with the AAA and senior things, and my wife in the medical field, is that, when somebody is good enough to move out of the hospital, then they need to move them into a long-term care. And if they're not willing to, if the long-term care folks are saying, no, we can't take them, then you've got a bottleneck. And so that's another complication. Each day we see rising case numbers, yet some feel there isn't cause for such extreme measures yet. But the case numbers we see today are a reflection on spread that occurred 2 or 3 weeks ago. We need to make the decision now on the basis of what those numbers might be in 2 or 3 weeks. The city's position has been that we will follow the guidelines set by Panhandle Health. They have recommended masks. Last week at a special meeting, the motion for a mandate for Kootenai County died for lack of a second. This was very disappointing for those of us who note the continued spread and realize we need to do more. I am encouraged to read that they have another board meeting on the topic of mask mandates this Thursday. The city's position has been, some in the political community have said this is a medical issue that should be handled by the medical experts, while some in the medical area have said, hey, this has political overtones, so they shouldn't deal with it. Well, been around the block. The reality is it's both. I mean, it's a health issue, it's political, and I think it's inseparable. But for tonight, anyway, as Harry Truman would say, the buck stops here. There's been concern about how would enforcement work, and I would be the first to say that, the police can't do it. They can't handle it alone. The park department can't do it. All of us all together can't do it. It has to be a community conscious approach. Everybody is going to have to look at the good of the whole community to do this. And yes, it is an ask, but we're not asking to cut off a hand or pluck out an eye, but to wear a face mask when called for. I expect that, and just to kind of wrap up my initial thoughts, most of us have probably gone through a situation of losing somebody close to us, and in the natural, mourning, grieving process, I think it often happens that folks will kind of look at it, and especially depending on circumstance, and kind of question, is there something different that I could have done to prevent this or maybe delay or something, and, and that's a natural reaction. And I think this is a case where it actually is one of those choices where there are things that we could make a choice that frankly could have that kind of an impact for somebody down the road. Again, I mean, there's no guarantees on anything, but so that is where I'm coming from, and I, welcome to hear thoughts, discussion of the rest of the council.
Other council thoughts on this?
Sure.
Christie?
Well, Dan, I appreciate everything you said. It's all accurate. I would say that we're in a position that isn't going to change. Kicking it down the road 2 weeks, as you said, isn't going to get any better. So tough decisions have to be made. If Panhandle Health is going to meet on Thursday and maybe take another run at it, that'll be really interesting to see. I think that we should be in a position, and not all council is going to agree, I understand that we support them. And if that means that they're going a direction, then we need to go the same direction. If we do nothing at all with a mandate, individual mandate, because there's some concern that, well, it's really difficult to enforce. I would just say that for law enforcement, there's all kinds of traffic laws, there's all kinds of, alcohol laws that are difficult to enforce just by the sheer numbers. But you put a law in place, you use the resources you have, you do the best you can to impact public safety. So if we didn't consider an individual mandate, at the minimum, I'd like us to consider a mandate for businesses, because that's where everyone's congregating. And we could help businesses. We could do it with Kiki's campaign. It could be a twofold thing, where businesses, you just have to have people wearing a mask when they come in, and then the campaign for individuals of do the right thing. On the other thing, I'd like to say that we have total control over city facilities. At a minimum, I think we should be asking our employees to wear a mask when they're working inside the facilities, unless they're in their own office space, their own vehicle. But if they're mixing and mingling on city property, not outside, but inside, I think we should at least start there with our own people and help protect our own people.
And Troy, we have that, excuse me, I'm sorry,
That's
Christie,
okay.
But Troy, we have that 6 foot, and if you're not within 6 feet, if you're within 6 feet wearing a mask.
Correct.
Within the city.
That has been in place for a number of weeks now, and all of the plexiglass is up for those areas as well. So yes, we very much endorse that recommendation and have it out there.
Great, great. So Dan, I think your points are good. I don't know that this isn't an action item for tonight, obviously. What did you want to do with this?
Well, I've got a thought, but I guess here.
I think that we kind of wanted to get everyone's feedback, and then we're in a bit of a holding pattern to see what the discussion is on Thursday. I think that we have some difference of opinions on the direction to go right now. I've said from the very beginning that this is something that you need to follow the health district's lead on. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, is that I think that this has been dropped in the city's lap. I think the state of Idaho led us through all of these 4 stages. Now we're in the worst stage that we've ever been in, and we're said, okay, city, it's on you guys now. Mm-hmm. And here's the problem with that, is that you look at Panhandle Health District, they have health in their name, right? Idaho Health and Welfare, which is a state agency, they have health in their name. We're all good, fine people here, but health isn't our expertise at all, right? We make decisions on, we have experts in police and fire and planning and parks and those kinds of things. And then we've had this decision just dropped in our lap. And that's frustrating to me, really frustrating. I believe in Kiki's campaign, I think it's fantastic. I'll share you a personal story. In my business, I require masks to be worn in my business. I think it's the right thing to do. It's a choice of mine. Other businesses have those choices too, but I made that choice. And we had an employee test positive. And they worked with the staff, right? So I had to close. I had to close my business, had to test all of my employees. But the fact of the matter that one employee that tested positive was wearing a mask during the shift, none of the other people tested positive. So I know we could have 10 people line up with the mask debate, right? Whether they thought that it was worthwhile. My personal experience is, boy, it sure worked for me. And I have a few people that work for me that are in the vulnerable stage, and it sure worked for them. And so I'm a big believer in that, and I would encourage masks if you can't be 6 feet away. So those just some of my thoughts. Woody, I rambled. I'm sorry. This is the rambling into the table there maybe tonight. So anyway, Dan, go ahead. Did you have something?
You want me to go? I agree with the social campaign. I think that's a brilliant idea. And there's a lot of good information out there. I sent you something, Mr. Mayor, regarding face masks and a lot of scientific stuff. For it to be most effective, it has to be coupled with hand washing. And it also has to be a knowledge of changing your mask frequently. But it's the data actually shows that it is effective at getting to that R0.1, which is where the infection rate flattens. Is it our role to be doing this? I would prefer not to. I don't like using the hammer of government to force or to control people's behavior. I know it's a public safety issue. My preference would be a recommendation that people start masking. And I think my observation is that it will happen. And it can happen without us, saying that we're going to be arresting people and writing tickets. Businesses are slowly doing the mask thing. I always have a mask with me. If I go to Costco, I put on the mask. The other day I went to Lowe's. They said, put on a mask. I put on a mask. Went to Calypso's today, put on a mask. I think eventually that will be the way it happens for the business community. It'll become socially acceptable. People will realize it's something that we have to do. Having us do it is a political move. It also means we would face a political consequence, which means potentially we would have protesters come up and attend our meetings and harass our staff over a decision that we made. And I think that should be considered when you talk about this. If you paid attention to the Panhandle Health meeting last Thursday, if you were online like I was, 500 people showed up. They were extremely unruly. There were 100+ people who showed up that day. They were extremely unruly. If we were to do a special call meeting or to have this come before us, we would face that kind of political antagonism. But I don't think any of that's necessary, because it's my observation that I think people will eventually become accustomed to this, recognize what it is, that informational campaign is going to help greatly to get the message out there, which is really important. But as far as us doing it, you're absolutely right, Mr. Mayor. With the leadership should come from the state, should come from the governor's office. That's who should be making that kind of decision. It should be coming national. We're just not seeing that kind of leadership on this specific topic right now.
Other council members want to weigh in? Amy, they'll come back.
Well, I absolutely agree. The leadership and the mandate should come from the state. If not the state, it should come from Panhandle Health, and I'm very much looking forward to the upcoming meeting and their decision. Our community is feeling such immense strain right now. Our numbers are rising, our ICU is full, our healthcare system is strained. Our vulnerable community members are at higher risk now than ever. People are hurting and scared. We all love our community, and we need to do everything we can to slow the spread. And that includes what Dan said earlier, washing our hands frequently, avoiding enclosed spaces, maintaining our social distance, and wearing a mask when social distancing is not possible. It's each of our own responsibilities to protect those we encounter and help our community return to normal. Help the businesses stay open. Help the schools open. I mean, we are just a short distance away from the beginning of school. And help us avoid another closure. We need to take every action we can to protect our community and each other. So this is my plea, an emotional plea, to please do your part, put politics aside, and protect one another and protect our community.
Thank you. Kiki.
Thank you. I wanted to share a few more things, and the only one thing I will disagree with you on, Councilmember English, I love your research, and you're spot on with where your direction is, but the buck doesn't stop here. As I've been talking to these organizations, unless there's a community-wide, a county-wide effort, the city of Coeur d'Alene can't stop this by itself. And I believe this campaign, I'm passionate about it. I've spent more hours than I want to claim working with people quickly to move something out, because the people who are behind it is what's important. It's our health leaders, and it's our school district, and it's our partner cities who are saying we have to put out this message together. And when someone visits, or whether they live here, they need to see a unified, loud voice that says we all believe in this. A mandate isn't going to change their mind. It's going to stir up controversy. It's going to stir up enforcement, all kinds of questions that in my mind aren't, and what I've been learning aren't necessary. What we need to do is be pointed and direct, and work as a unified group to make this manageable.
Yeah, thank you.
I would tell you quickly, I meant to say earlier that the way this campaign was designed, these signs can change up. So there can be a list of these signs that if you want to put this in your business and say, mandatory in this business, you can just print that version, and it can change within a 24-hour period, the way that the messaging, the spots, and the billboards are laid out. So it's meant to pivot quickly and pay attention to our stats and stay in front of this as best we can.
And Kiki, you've done a great job on this, and this is a full-blown professional message campaign. This isn't create a couple of flyers and tape them to the windows, right? This is a serious, get out the message that we strongly encourage wearing masks and following, like Dan said, following all the other healthcare guidelines as well.
And it's our neighbors. Everyone has said that. Our friends in Montana and our friends in Washington that come over think this is just the free mask playground. So we need to, as a community, say, no, I didn't say a free mask-free playground is what I meant to say. But we should give out free masks. But when those visitors and our neighbors who we want to have enjoy our community understand that we're united in the fact that they need to use these mask precautions, I think we'll all be safer.
Woody.
So you guys know I work north of Prairie. That's the line of demarcation in North Idaho. I hope if you don't know, everybody north of Prairie, and I can't say everybody, but my particular customers think it's all bull. Everything you've said, I've heard the exact opposite. Exact opposite. This doesn't work, that doesn't work, that blah, blah. That's where I am influenced. That's what I hear all day. I support Kiki's program. I'm not wild about carrying a big stick and telling people what to do, and the county isn't and the state isn't, So I'm trying to be the best I can be in this job, and I think the path you're going with to get all the professionals involved is the right way to go. But I support Amy. I know you live in it. She lives in a mask. I never wear a mask unless I'm asked to, and I'll put it on for your comfort. My customers don't wear masks. They never ask me why we don't wear a mask. So it's just a little different perspective from a different place and time, maybe, So I do support it. I think it's the right way to go.
Yeah. So I'm trying to see where we're at. As far as turns, we'll go to Christy. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to also talk a little bit about our situation here in the city. Our police department's had over 100 exposures to COVID. We've had ill officers and staff. We've had dozens of quarantines. I didn't get the fire department numbers, but they're certain fairly high with exposures. They've had full shifts that they've had to quarantine. So my concern is that's going to be an issue at some point. Our city's going to be vulnerable with first responders, maybe not being able to staff appropriately. So what I would like to know is what the feeling is of council is after the Thursday meeting with Panhandle Health first, would we like to send a message from our council supporting Panhandle Health in making that decision? Or would we feel like we should meet again after we know what their decision is and discuss this further?
I would say that we would, after Thursday's decision, we would schedule a meeting. We'd get together again. Yeah.
Great.
Dan.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I would like to add something that Christy said about first responders. Is there a way that we can provide, using COVID funding, masks for fire and police to hand out to those citizens they interact with who aren't wearing masks?
That's already started. The idea came from Amy. And then, as I do very well, I just hand it off to somebody that's going to do the work.
Right.
Kenny Gabriel and his crew right now are working with PD, and they are going to be getting the masks and working on handing those out. Yeah, he's got a couple thousand, 2,000 or 3,000 ordered right now, and we're going to do that. Yes.
And following up on that real quick, you've talked about, and Kiki, you've talked about, and Mayor, you've talked about hand sanitizing. Do we have the CARES funding for some hand sanitizing stations in the huge population areas like downtown? Where, people are out walking those streets pretty late. Do we have the funds for that?
We would have to, Stephanie, who works for Vaughn in finance, is the expert on that. We will get that answer. I would think that answer would be yes, that we could do that, but we'll get that answer. Yeah. So I guess from here, we'll wait to see what happens out of the meeting on Thursday, and then we'll have a conversation. Dan.
Well, I guess where I would like to go tonight, and kind of getting back to Christie's, I realize we can't take, we could if we deemed, certain emergency conditions, which actually I feel probably could met, but for me, having the knowledge that the Panhandle Health is going to have that meeting on Thursday, is a significant fact. But what I would still like to see us do tonight, and we can, is and it could either be action of the mayor or, 4 members of the council, but to call for a special meeting now, but call for it on Friday to discuss the real issue of the mask mandate. However, if that passes Panhandle Health on Thursday, then cancel the meeting because we wouldn't need that. But, given the time constraints and frankly, it's only right to the public to have some advanced knowledge. So I guess that's where I would like to see us go, and could have some more discussion, but basically set a special call for Friday, and again, it may be called off if hopefully, and I will say, and I totally agree with Kiki and others, that, the city approach certainly isn't the best, and the piecemeal isn't the best. At least a county-wide approach, I think, is by far the best, and if that happens, Woody, that would hit you folks too. But anyway, that would certainly be the preference. So again, to sum all of that up, I don't want to see us just go away without something, but set that special call meeting on the agenda for Friday, but see what happens Thursday.
So I guess I would not be in favor of that. I would be in favor of waiting until Thursday to see what happens, but I would go to what the council would like to do.
Then I would make a motion that we.
Well, I don't know. We can't have a vote on that. Renata, you better pull us back into the rules.
Special call. I think we can.
Well, either way, you wouldn't meet the 5-day posting requirement, so it would have to be under the emergency rules process. And I think Mike Gridley can confirm. I think you can do that up to 24 hours in advance of the meeting, and even up to the moment in time you need to do it as an emergency.
I think we clarify that, there's two different things. One is a special call meeting, and that requires 24-hour notice. We brushed up on the rules today, and the Americans call for that. Council, 4 members of council could call for that too. There is a provision for emergency meetings on shorter notice, but I think you would need to demonstrate really imminent peril or some immediate injury or harm. I don't know that this ongoing pandemic would rise to that. So, but you could do a special call meeting, and it would require 24 hours.
So again, that was my understanding, that for that 24-hour notice, and we would need to get 4 votes of the council to set that for Friday.
That's an
That would be
emergency.
correct.
Woody?
So, let me understand. So you want to do a special call Friday if something happens? Or if something doesn't happen?
I want to have it in place so that if the Panhandle Health Board does not pass a countywide mandate for Kootenai County on Thursday, if they do not pass that, then at least we're set to debate, take action, vote up or down ourselves. But if they do take action and institute a countywide mandate, then we would not need that meeting because of course, Coeur d'Alene is within the whole county, so we wouldn't have to worry about that. And again, a wider county-wide approach is better than city by city.
So you want to support, if they don't go for it, you want us to vote, just do the city?
Well, yes, I want to have that debate and vote, and I've heard from a lot of folks that feel the same way. I know that there's been a lot of, most of the input has been from the folks who don't hold that position, but I think a whole lot of folks who would like to see a mask mandate, I think they are coming out. But again, I think it is such an important issue that deserves that debate.
Dan?
So I don't know the answer to this question. I know that Panhandle Health can suggest a mandate, but I don't believe they have police powers.
I think they do.
They do have it on
Yeah,
that?
I think they do.
Okay,
Mhm.
thanks.
Yeah. So I guess what is the pleasure of council? And Renato, maybe guide us through what the rules would be.
Can I?
Oh, Kiki, go ahead.
I just need to clarify what we're doing before you go through the rules. So we're waiting until Thursday to find out if Panhandle Health District passes a mandate. If they do, then you want to have a special council meeting to do the same thing.
No, he would ask to cancel that. Dan is in favor of a mandate, right? So Dan is saying that if Panhandle Health doesn't pass it on Thursday, that he wants council to discuss it on Friday.
Right. And when we discuss it, would it be an action item?
Yes.
To pass a mandate or not?
Correct.
Okay. And you don't think that the city alone is going to be successful if we pass a mandate? It has to be a countywide effort.
I think a countywide is certainly preferable, but I think for our own citizens, a citywide, well, again, is
Okay,
better
I'm just trying to be
than
clear.
not having a mandate.
Right. So if they do not pass a mandate, you want to vote, and you're okay with us passing a mandate, knowing that it might not be successful unless the whole county goes along with it?
Yes, it probably won't be as successful as if the whole county, yes.
Okay. I just want to know where to put my energy.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, could you explain, you're not really in favor of a special call. Tell me what you would like to do later.
I'm in favor of doing what you guys would like to do. I'm not the king here, right? I'm here to facilitate these meetings. If you guys would like to have a meeting to discuss it, we can certainly, and you guys decide that that's what you'd like to do, we can certainly do that.
I think it's fine to have a meeting to discuss it. We don't know where we're going to end up. Everybody has their own opinions.
Yeah.
It's fine to discuss it. Even though Panhandle Health might not take the whole county, some city's going to have to step up, and then people will get on board. It might have to be us. Don't know if this council would want to do it, but I think it's fine to discuss it, so I would support that.
Oh, Amy, did you?
Well, I would support a discussion as well. I mean, I feel we need, it's no secret how I feel about this, right? And we all need to do our part, and as leaders, you know, it's tough, right? We're in a tough spot with a tough pandemic, and I'm absolutely in favor of meeting to discuss the safety of our community on Friday, if needed.
Dan, Gookin.
Oh, I just want to know if there was a motion and a second.
Well, we're not going to vote on it,
earlier,
but I'm kind of getting the general consensus that council would like to meet on Friday. So Renata, if you could notice that, is there a time, noon Friday?
Doesn't matter to me.
Well, and just for clarification, then are you calling it as mayor, or do we need to have a motion?
Yeah, if you guys, if I'm getting the head nods that you guys want to have a meeting on Friday, we'll make that happen.
Okay.
Yeah. What does noon work for you?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
So, didn't we just have this discussion? Isn't that what we've been talking about this whole time?
Well, it's going to be a vote
So I'm trying to
on
understand,
Friday.
what's different? We're not voting to mandate masks today, but you want to vote on Friday to mandate masks. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, if it's not done by Panhandle
So I just needed it
Health.
to be clear in my head. I thought we just had this discussion. I thought I fell asleep or something.
Partway, but no.
Okay.
But it's not an action item, we couldn't do anything.
Well, today it's not, but we just had the discussion. So all we're doing is kicking it down to Friday. In case somebody else doesn't do it, we'll do it.
Well, no, we
is our
won't
first
do it
opportunity.
necessarily. We'll
Discuss it again and vote.
We'll vote on it, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Dan?
So I would prefer that there was a motion and a second and a vote. And Mr. Gridley, is this taking place under the emergency clause?
No, it's just under setting a special meeting, and the statute is a little bit unclear what's required. It just talks about one half of council plus one of the members of council, full council, that shall have the power to call a special meeting. It doesn't talk about a motion or a vote, but that would probably be the best thing to do. Likewise, the mayor, on his own volition, can call a special call meeting. So it's not under the emergency meeting. The emergency meeting is for 24 hours or less if you wanted to do that.
So the statute says that who can call this meeting? It says 4 council people or the mayor?
One half of the council plus one, so it'd be 4 in our situation. Or the mayor can call a special call meeting.
And if I recall earlier, Mr. Mayor, your opinion on the meeting was yes or no?
My opinion on the meeting is if you guys want to have it, I'll schedule it.
I think we should vote.
I agree. I'm okay with that. Yeah, so if you want to have a motion and a second and vote, I'm good with that too.
I think it's good to have a vote then, and so I
I'd
would
make a motion that we
Oh.
have a special call meeting on Friday at noon. Is that what time we're nodding towards?
Okay.
Works.
So there's a motion. We have a second.
I'll second that.
Any seconds? Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Okay, so you got that recorded there, Renata. So we were right now scheduled to have a special call meeting to discuss the mask issue on Friday noon. Okay. So we will move on to the consent calendar. What do you
Mr.
up for that?
Mayor, I would like to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second?
Motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Renata.
Miller,
Yes?
McEvers,
Yes.
Gookin,
Yep.
English,
Yes.
Wood,
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Motion carried. We'll go on to other business. This would be the endorsement of St. Vincent de Paul of North Idaho as an Envision Center at the existing Help Center. Hillary.
All right. Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. So the request before you this evening is just that. So St. Vincent de Paul of North Idaho has asked the City of Coeur d'Alene for endorsement for them to apply to become an Envision Center at the existing Help Center. So St. Vincent de Paul was approached by HUD's Region 10 Regional Administrator and the HUD Idaho State Director to gauge the interest to apply and get this designation as an Envision Center at the existing Help Center. So the Envision Center demonstration, it supports a one-stop, single-site service center, such as the existing Help Center. And it's delivery of integrated services, and it's helping to increase opportunities for low-income individuals and families to achieve self-sufficiency. So the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, which is HUD, administers this Envision Centers initiative, and it really is looking at financial support, on the notion that financial support alone is not sufficient to solve the problem of poverty. And so there's a mission with the initiative with 4 pillars of how to accomplish this. So it's looking at economic empowerment, educational advancement, health and wellness, and character and leadership. So St. Vincent de Paul has been in existence since 1946, and they have run the Help Center on Harrison Avenue in the former city library since 2009. And the Help Center is largely already doing exactly what an Envision Center is doing. And so this is just getting this prestigious recognition to do the exact same thing. The closest Envision Center in the area is Spokane Valley, and so that's within the same HUD district, but this would be the first one in Idaho, which is great, and would be a prestigious designation. So as I mentioned, they're already really fulfilling this function. They just don't have the designation. And so what would be nice about this, unlike other Envision Centers, is there's a physical location. So a lot of communities might apply, but then they have to find a location, build a building, kind of get it up and running, and this has been in existence, as I mentioned, since 2009. So those are a lot of the important components about that. Some other things that would be great is that it would allow St. Vincent de Paul to be able to build upon their existing partnerships with a lot of the federal partners. It would allow them to get additional assistance from HUD through webinars and grant support and grant opportunities, and then also bringing together other partners. So some of the things mentioned in the staff report and also in the attached plan are really how would St. Vincent de Paul achieve those 4 pillars. And so walking through that, the first is on that economic empowerment. So St. Vincent de Paul already provides counseling, financial wellness, career development, and workshops, and they work closely with the University of Idaho on that. Educational advancement, so they provide on-site instruction, partner with local institutions to help with GED preparation, college enrollment, job skill development, partnering with TESH and others for the on-the-job training. Health and wellness, they partner with Heritage Health for the street medicine teams, Panhandle Health District, Kootenai Health, and the Eye Care Food Nutrition Counseling Program to help people have healthier lives. And then on character and leadership, they hold weekly and monthly case management with a focus on goal setting and refocusing past negative behaviors. So the volunteers are regularly presented as a means of giving back. St. Vincent de Paul, one thing they really noted in their application to HUD is that they're focused on handing up, not handing out. So I think that's really important. They're focused on self-sufficiency and less dependence. So those are some of the areas where I think they would really shine. And so really they're asking for the city to support this. The endorsement is really just signing on the letter. It can either come from our city administrator, it can come from the mayor, it can come from council members, or all of us to kind of, sign on saying we endorse St. Vincent de Paul in the Help Center to become an Envision Center through HUD. So that's really the request this evening. I wanted to point out there's no financial ask for this. So we, asked even our HUD representative, and then there was conversations with Kim McCollum, who's here as well from HUD Region 10, just to make sure that we aren't going to be in conflict with our community development block grants and kind of already receiving our HUD funds. And so there's no issue with that, no conflict. Another benefit of this is that St. Vincent de Paul could be more competitive in receiving grant funds, which would be a financial benefit. So really, their goal is to continue with their programs and expand upon that, and then the funding would be through their normal means. So grant funds, charitable contributions, donations, events, and other revenue from the thrift stores. So I do have in attendance this evening, we have Larry Riley, the Executive Director of St. Vincent de Paul of North Idaho, and Kim McCollum from HUD Region 10, if the council does have any questions that I am unable to answer. But with that, I'm happy to try and answer questions.
All right, questions for Hillary?
Hillary, this doesn't impact our CVB grant program?
It does not, no.
We do things for St. Vincent through that also.
Correct.
But two separates.
Two separate things, and this doesn't obligate us to put money into this Envision Center.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Hillary? Kiki?
Just, Hillary, is there going to be any, I don't know, zoning impacts, changes that this might affect? It's because really they're doing this work in the same facility right now.
Right, so that's the beauty of this, is so unlike other communities, this is an existing facility, they're already doing the programming, so nothing would need to change from the city's perspective. It's really just kind of a gold star saying that the Help Center at St. Vincent de Paul of North Idaho has an Envision Center designation through HUD.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Christy?
Well, Mr. Mayor, there doesn't seem to be any downside. In fact, we're in a position to help with just an endorsement, is what it sounds like, so.
Okay.
Thank you, Hillary.
All right, if there are no other questions, be looking for a motion.
I will make that motion.
You got it.
Okay, I make a motion to approve an endorsement of St. Vincent de Paul of North Idaho as an Envision Center at the existing Help Center.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion?
A little late on that.
All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Hillary. Next piece of business, resolution number 20-039, approving a contract for design and construction engineering and consulting services with Keller Associates for the new Hudderweil in the amount of $218,930. Terry?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. While I'm getting this up and going, we've all talked a lot of doom and gloom tonight. I wanted to inject a little positive note into the evening.
Okay.
One of my employees will be a new grandmother tonight. And so I wanted to wish her congratulations, and I'm anxious to see the pictures. So, all right, I'm bringing before you tonight a contract for development of our recently completed Hudderweil. This is the new location for the well. It's out on Hutter Road, just south of the Prairie Trail crossing there, and West Big Sky Drive. You can see the location of the well site in relation to industrial standpipe, which is down here in this corner right here. We've got to install a transmission main, which you've already selected the consultant for the transmission portion of it. So tonight we're looking to select a consultant and approve a contract for the actual well and well building. The well was drilled this past winter. We tested it early spring. Everything tested out fine, did all the water quality samples. Everything came back nice and clean. We were able to achieve in excess of 4,000 gallons per minute, which is what our goal was to get to. So this contract will be for the equipment design and selection, the building materials, the building itself, site development, and everything out to the fence line for the project. So we'll be going with a deep well vertical turbine pump, basically this kind of design here, and this is some of the equipment that goes into it. We'll be looking at developing the lot to match our existing well lots around the city. We're debating, as this will be a primary well, we're debating on construction materials for the building itself. Historically, we've used concrete block. That's relatively expensive, but it is very durable and low maintenance. So we'll take a look at that type of design and maybe some other options as well to maybe reduce some of those costs. We do want, it'll be out in the public, so we do want a fairly nice looking building. We try to keep our facilities in really good shape. We've always been of the opinion that if it looks good, the water's good. So that's what we look for. This here is the Ralph Capal site. This is the fire department around it, so we'll have kind of a site layout probably in the reverse of this order because it'll be going east instead of west, but a similar site layout. We have to fence the site for security reasons per the Homeland Security Act, so we'll have the 102-foot square area fenced. We currently have a problem with contractors driving through the area to get to the development in the trails, and they're driving across the actual prairie trail itself, so we've been working with the park department to get that problem blocked off. So we put out an RFP earlier this year. We got 3 responses back from Welch Comer, Keller Associates, who is the selected consultant, and Verdis. And myself, the assistant director, and the wastewater director reviewed the consultant proposals. We used a scoring ranking for it. Keller Associates was the highest scoring consultant we were looking at, so we decided to go ahead and go with them. Historically, we've utilized either Welch Comer or JUB. JUB did not submit. Neither did Murray Smith and Associates, who we've looked at in the past. We've used Keller on a couple of other projects. We're very pleased with their performance. They had some different ideas we'd like to take a look at as far as energy efficiency and some other methods for promoting a cost-effective well. So we've negotiated a contract for $218,930, and we propose to select them as a consultant and authorize the contract.
Questions for Terry?
Just one, Terry. So we're paying these guys to figure out what it's going to look like and what we're going to build. It doesn't pay for the actual construction. It's how to do it, how they're going to do it.
Correct. This is for the design, the bidding process, and construction management.
Okay, so they follow it through.
Itself, no.
Okay.
So this is just for that. There are 2 different agencies involved in this, Idaho Department of Water Resources as well as DEQ. They all require an engineering stamp on any drawings and approval process, so that's why we've got to involve the engineers. We have a design from Ralph Paul Well, but we're looking at some other options, some things that we liked and didn't like.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Kiki?
Terry, you mentioned that they scored well when you were rating them as far as your choices. Do you have a standard, process that's the same scoring program you put each of these?
Yes, we've utilized the same scoring process on all of our RFPs. This one has been through a lot of the city design, and other departments have used it as well.
Same one. And do you keep copies of those? Are they
Yes,
available?
they do.
Okay, thank you.
Dan?
Well, I would just comment that I'm glad to see that there were at least, sounds like a few people that bid, and the fact that it's somebody that on one hand you've had good luck with or good feelings about before, but maybe not have been as active. So I think it's always good when we can, if they're folks who can do the job, getting some new ideas, different approach infused in there is that's good.
That's what we're excited about, too.
Any other questions? If not, we'd be looking for council action.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 20-040, approving an agreement with Coleman, excuse me, I am on the wrong one. Sorry. Let me start over. To approve resolution number 20-039.
Okay.
Approving a contract for design and construction engineering and consultant services with Keller Associates for the new Hudderweil in the amount of $218,930.
Second.
Oh.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please, Renata.
McEvers?
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Gookin?
Sure.
English?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
Motion carried. Resolution number 20-040, approving the bid of an agreement with Coleman Oil for fuel services for 1 year with options for 3 additional 1-year terms. Troy, do you have that?
I must have that, sir, yes.
So you've got this, Troy?
Or Tim's on the phone, so go ahead, you lead it. I will
That's
just stand
okay,
here.
you've got it. I'll answer questions.
Thank you, Tim. How about that? He just shows up. Council, the staff has gone out and done a request for proposal for fuel services. The city is recommending Coleman Oil, which was previously Clark Oil. That expires 2020 on the end of August. The opportunity here is that we did get 2 bids. we would propose that we go into a 1 year with 3 annual options after that. It was a very close bid, which means that we did a good job of writing up the specs and bringing it forward that way. So we would suggest to you to take the low bid from Coleman Oil. They have provided excellent customer service as we surveyed those folks that get to use their fuel services, and we made a couple of small, minor modifications to the contract, which they have agreed to. And if you have any questions, Tim would like to answer them.
Any council questions for Troy or Tim? Woody?
Tim, are you still there?
I sure am, sir.
Well, so when you bid for fuel, it's like so much for a gallon? Is that the way you do it?
Yes, every week, there's a standard out there. It's called the Opus Rack. That's the oil price index that comes out of the city of Spokane. That's where all our fuels come from. So it's tied to that, and what we pay is the markup and such things like that. That's why these bids are so tight, is because that they're both working off the same numbers. It's just the markup price.
And so the prices change periodically, or is it every year they change, or monthly?
It changes daily and weekly. I mean, we as department heads see our numbers every month, and one day I'll pay a different price than I would the next day.
So you try and fill up on the cheap days, right? So let me ask you.
We work at it.
Remember when COVID was about a month or so ago, and the prices just like were so cheap? Were you guys enjoying that also?
Yeah, we absolutely. The city gets those same prices that come through. We're right now, I mean, probably as low as I've ever seen them since I've been here.
All right, thank you.
Dan, English, go ahead.
Yes, just a question in terms of the kind of the end user, when some of our, whether it be the patrol cars or whoever have to fill up, does it impact that, or is it, or do we already have our own storage tanks?
No, we have 4 sites that we can fill up, both on the north and south ends of I-90, and we use their sites. We've had issues. We had one issue back, probably 10, 12 years ago, where the power went down. They lost power, and we were able to get our stuff, our fuels elsewhere at their cost, that Opus price. It's too costly. We've looked at potentially putting our own tanks in, but the insurance cost and things like that just run us out of business.
So just to clarify, if we go with this, they would end up going to a different place to fill up than they do now?
If we lost power, sir, but we have our options of 4 different areas, 2 south of I-90 and 2 north.
Okay, thanks.
I would like to also mention that, we've worked with this company for our last contract, and they have sites all over the western United States and all over locally. If we have training, whether it's in Boise or Seattle or wherever, we can go to these CFN sites.
Any other questions? If there are no other questions, we'll be looking for council action.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move for approval of Resolution 20-040, approving the agreement with Coleman Oil for fuel services for 1 year with options for 3 additional 1-year terms.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Gookin?
Yep.
English?
Yes.
Wood?
Yes.
Evans?
Yes.
Miller?
Yes.
McEvers?
Yes.
Motion carried. Our last item tonight, council liaison discussion. We've discussed this a few times, and we have Council Member Gookin that's going to present some information for us.
I'll spare you the PowerPoint. So we had discussed this before, and I ran it by Councilmember Wood and Councilmember McEvers to decide what it was. We wanted to do some language, and you can see the staff report there. The idea is to create liaisons between the committees, General Services and Public Works, or whatever they're called now, with their associated departments. So that would be, for General Services, it would be Fire, Planning, and Police. And for Public Works, it would be Streets, Wastewater, and Water. Then also, I talked to Woody, and he wanted to add that we attend the executive team meetings. All this is up for discussion. There's really nothing planned, nothing, just that we want to be a little bit more involved in the process, not directing staff. That's very important. We want to learn, observe. When I first started here at the city, we did attend the executive team meetings, and then it stopped. And so I phoned up former Mayor Bloom and asked her what her opinion was on council liaisons and attending the executive team meetings, and she distilled it down into two things. She said it does help build a team, and it also helps improve communications. And I would say those are the goals for this, is to help build a better city team and also to improve communications between staff and council. There was an executive team meeting just this last Thursday, and this item was discussed at length by the attendees of that meeting, which is all the department heads. And there were some excellent points brought up in that meeting. Some of them I'd just like to talk about here. I'm just going to hit the one that I thought was the most important, that I drew a little star by. It said that some department heads felt that the subcommittee meetings were good practice because it gave staff opportunity to bring an item forward and be prepared for council meetings. And I thought that was really cool, because it would be one way that we could consider tackling this, would be to revive those committees. And instead of having staff or council show up to those departments, have the departments show up to us. And so even if there was nothing on the agenda per se, we could have an update from these departments, and they could inform us of what's going on, just even if it's not an action item, even if it's just here's what, just want to let you know what's going on and what we're dealing with in our regular routine. And that may be one way to handle it that might be more efficient than having council people show up to staff meetings. But I just thought I would throw this out here as more of a formal proposal than the discussion last time, and I'm eager to hear the feedback from council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Council questions? This one question, Dan, is that as far as scheduling goes, I know that you said that staff shall schedule each council member of their ET meeting for the current year, so that would be scheduled out for the current year. So if there's a meeting, ET meeting every week, right? It's every 2 weeks. So there's 24 meetings during the year. The council or the staff would just schedule that out. So here's the calendar, 24 meetings, put a name by each one. That's the calendar.
And that's how it worked before.
And then as far as any of the other meetings, I just want to make sure that all of these, the scheduling is taken care of. I didn't see, is that laid out on whose responsibility would be to schedule the meetings? Or is that going to be each individual council person's job? So for someone's with streets, then you'll communicate with streets.
And that was my thought, was the latter, which is that, for example, one of the first meetings I went to when I was a council person was a water department meeting. Mr. Markley at the time invited me to show up to one of their meetings at some ungodly hour. It was really early, and I did. And it was, it was a staff meeting. It was boring. But it was interesting because I learned a lot about what it is they do on a daily basis. Now, I didn't show up to any more because it was really early and it was boring, but it was good. And I think that's kind of the thing here, is that the council person can decide how much to interact. If they say, our department meetings are, Thursday at 9 a.m., they have an option to show up if they want to. And learn a little bit more, or if they want to, the council person could just schedule their own meeting with the department head and say, when is it more convenient so I can come in here and find out what's going on. I think we should have a wide latitude. That's my opinion.
Okay. Any discussion? Dan, English.
Well, just kind of the second thing that you highlighted at the meeting last week, the idea that, kind of going back to the two committee structure. Actually, I still really like that, prefer that, and I think the idea that, even if we didn't have agenda item, but there could be some discussion time, because it is kind of frustrating to, be ready to go and all of that, and actually look forward to the input, and then if there isn't enough business, we cancel, and sometimes at the last minute. I think it should be something that everybody could, count on, and we're going to do that, just like we don't cancel council meetings for, lack of whatever, and, but, so I don't know if that would replace the council liaison. On that, I had just two kinds of question, whether it's concern or not, but I think I saw something about that they would be 4-month terms. I think that's, if you were going to do that, I think that's kind of short. I would say more like 6 months. Maybe that's not a big deal. But the other thing is, I think I read something that, they'd be assigned to one of these, and that's where they'd be, kind of like, unless they preferred, I read something, preferred not to or something. But if we were going to do that, I think that, it needs to be, that's what it's going to be. It's a set rotation. So anyway, you can respond to that questions, or
it's a good idea.
Would that, if we went back to the old committees, could that potentially, would that be in place of this council liaison idea?
I think that would be, that's a great idea. It was brought up at executive team.
Yeah. Again, I've liked that from the get-go. So.
Okay. Christine.
Well, first of all, good presentation, Dan.
Yeah.
You did a nice job on it.
Thank you.
The more information, the better for the decision-making that we have to do here. And so I'm good with either way. I think that probably when I read some of those ET notes, I was a little taken aback. I'm an elected official somewhere else, and so it's just a totally different kind of feeling. It's a little more of, come and learn all you want to learn. I saw a little bit of pushback, and I was surprised by that. I don't think any of us have an intention of trying to be a person that gives direction or carries a program forward, whatever it may be. This is very much just, hey, we want to learn more about you so that we're more informed, and I think that's a good thing. So either way, I'm fine with, because we can pop into various meetings. I would hope that people would feel comfortable with us. We're pretty nice people. So anyway, I'm good either way.
Any other input from Council Kiki?
My only thought was I missed not having the Public Works, the meetings, and it feels like a lot have been canceled. So I'd be good with going back to the alternating Public Works General Services meetings. And what I did, was fortunate enough to do, was switch on every 2 years that I've been on to one of the other subcommittees. So I got a real in-depth, view. Under this program, I would move within only Public Works, which leaves me then having to double up my time to go find out what's going on in fire planning and police. So that part of it, I'm not good with that. It would be good if we could rotate around further, because otherwise you're completely isolated, or else you have to, make specific time to go out to those other departments. So I had that. The executive team, I respect their concerns. If they feel that they can't, they're not comfortable with council members there, I'd like to try going to an executive team meeting on some level, just to maybe test the waters and say, this could be a team building thing, and maybe if we tried it, even one of us once a month just went and had an opportunity to sit in on that meeting, I'd like to give that a whirl. So those are my comments on it. I missed the subcommittee meetings. I know that the community got I got a chance to really vet out some of those issues before they came to council. The community got to see it again. So I mostly miss them as canceling our meetings a lot. But I know that it's been a strange time of year. So I guess where I'm at is I'd like to test the waters on executive team, but I'd really, if we're going to go with liaisons, move them around to all of the departments. And the other thing is the role, the definition of a liaison I've been struggling with. Woody looks at it as an opportunity to just learn about things. And I know Dan was looking at it more of, this is an interaction between council and that department, and you get a more in-depth knowledge. And I looked at liaisons as our responsibility to bring information back to the rest of the group. So defining what that really means in like, should we be giving reports if we go to a water department meeting and we find out that they're up for some huge federal grant? Should we share that that's occurring or wait for it to come? Or what is our, what is the liaison definition there? So that's one of my pieces. Boy, I'm getting the sore neck thing going back and forth like this.
Amy?
I'm really intrigued by the idea of having the department heads come to our committee meetings. I too miss the committee meetings. Always looked forward to them, as short as they were if they happened. And I think it would solve a couple obstacles that we're facing. A, we could educate the community on our departments, since those are televised. And B, we become more educated ourselves and be able to share their information in a clearer, more precise way. So I am certainly in support of moving forward with that idea. In fact, I think that's brilliant, in fact. I have concerns. I've always been an advocate of us taking turns going to executive team. I mean, I know I've talked to Kiki about it in the past and Woody, and I just have some concerns after reading the department head's comments. And the last thing I want to do is get in their way or even be perceived to get in their way. So I'm still struggling with that a little bit. I would like to see us try it. I agree with Kiki, but I do have some hesitation there. I'd like to see us try the committee meetings with their presentations and their information, and then if we need to move further with an actual liaison, we can explore that later. But do it in a step-by-step way.
Dan?
Well, just a follow-up comment. Sounds like we've got pretty good consensus to bring the old committees back, but add that presentation. But also, I think, as a, kind of an in-between step, not having somebody, a council member going to every ET meeting, but I think the idea of like the once a month and rotating that, I think could, I'd be supportive of that.
Christie?
And Mr. Mayor, just when we talk about presentations, something that the college does is incredibly popular with the board. Every agenda item, we have a celebrating success. And I'm not suggesting we put that on the council agenda and take up council time. But at the subcommittee meetings, you get to highlight different departments and the great things they're doing, and it educates the community, educates council. So I would advocate a celebrating success sort of agenda item for those meetings.
Woody?
Well, you guys are all on the right page. Christy, your idea, I give some of the departments a hard time. Parks, right? Well, Parks, he goes to the Parks Commission and brings his crew, and they do a whole presentation on what they do and how they do it. We never saw it.
Right.
You saw it.
I saw it.
I watched it a couple times on TV because it was fascinating. I didn't know they were these guys, and they move over here.
Yeah.
But you're right. That's ideally is what the committee meetings could be. If you don't have anything, you're asking us for money or okay to do something, bring us a story. Bring us a presentation. Have any of you guys seen the wastewater treatment video? I mean, that guy made that. And it's brilliant, and I remember going with Sid, and it was all blah, blah, blah. Well, now, you can watch, it was good, but you can watch it now. And those are those things that these guys are doing we would never know about, never, unless you're having some relationship with them, Yeah. So I think you guys are all in the right place. ET is just, you know, they're uncomfortable. Why? Can we fix it? You know, I think if you don't want, if you get a chance to go and you don't want to, call somebody else. You want to do it? I don't think there should be more than one of us here.
Right.
You're usually at those, aren't you?
No,
You don't go?
no, I avoid as many meetings as I can.
It's just an observing. They sit out here and watch us work, and I think the reality, again, it's all about learning. How much do you want to put into it? We've had council people that are not interested in anything but what is important to them. That's some history, and I guess that's okay. There's not a right or a wrong way to do these things, and I've always thought by offering these types of things, you choose to go. There's no rules that say you have to, but most of us are here because we're passionate about our city and these people who make us look good, you know, so I'm with you.
We put that in a motion.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So here's what I'm kind of gathering from listening to everyone, and what I'd like to propose, just to run it by you and get some feedback. I would like to revive our 2 meetings, and that we split every month on the Mondays, and have staff organize whatever the departments are so that we can have at least 2 contact points from different departments. During those meetings, they could do a presentation, they could just sit for questions, we could just do a chat, and have that rotate through the various committees so that we're getting different council or different departments each time. You know, just have them parade through that. Staff can go ahead and just arrange a schedule beyond the normal business that we would have in those meetings. I'm thinking for executive team, until the COVID restrictions are lifted, I think we'll postpone that. Because I think the value there is to be in person and interactive, and right now on Zoom, I think that would be weird. I just think it would be a little weird. So I would favor postponing the executive team contact for now, and we'll revisit it when all this stuff is over, because we're all going to wear masks, right? And then, but for the meantime, I think I would make a motion to reactivate the 2 committees, and to direct staff to arrange for a schedule of presentations or contacts, so a minimum of 2 departments per meeting to interact with council, question and answer, presentation, just a heads up what's going on, kind of update. And that would be the motion.
Can I?
We have a
And
second.
if we second it, we can discuss it.
I was just going to second for discussion.
Great.
So
Okay,
motion
thank
and a
you.
Second, now discussion. Kristen.
So, under discussion, I guess, I don't want them to feel a ton of pressure. I just want, come and talk to us for 10 minutes. Don't do a big old PowerPoint unless you want to.
Good.
But just share with us the success that's happening in your department, just things that you might want us to know. And so no pressure. You know, I know that last time we talked about the budget meeting, boy, they put a ton of work into that, which I appreciated, but I never intended for them to stress to that level. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Do you have something?
Well, I was going to say the same thoughts. I don't want to use a lot of their staff time and resources to be preparing for us, right?
Good point.
So my follow-up to that is it reasonable to have 2 departments every 2 weeks? Or, I mean, should we give the flexibility and say at least 1? I don't want to tie your hands. I'm putting you on the spot, Troy.
That's all right, thank you. I might make a suggestion that we look at the agenda, because if we had a big agenda, it wouldn't be the best use of your time. And then I would ask that we back it off to 1, and that they go to both meetings that month, and we'll get through pretty much all the departments in a year.
Yeah,
And you'll have gained a whole bunch of information, and that way that director or assistant director goes to both meetings that month.
You know, I'm good with that, to modify my motion to reflect that feedback.
Perfect. That was my only question, is I wanted to make sure that we got the department heads, that all department heads would go to all meetings, so that we would be able to have that well-rounded exposure.
I'm good.
That's a bad word to use.
Oh.
Exposure.
Hey, Troy.
Additional
could I weigh
supportive
in?
comment, but I remember when we had those 2 different meetings, and actually at different times, I mean, and our intent is to communicate with the public, and the more points of I was going to say exposure, but interaction, the better. And there were some times when an issue, we had the agenda out, and the reporter would, zero in on something, and they'd have a story before we had that meeting, and then in real time in the meeting, sometimes it's like, oh, should this be, consent or bring it back, and we would make that kind of a decision in real time. And so there might be some issues where the public got that contact point at different levels. So I think that's a good thing, and having it with the video and all of that. So anyway, I think that's a good thing.
My only point that I want to make sure is I want to make sure that we're serving all 6 of you, and that schedules and all the information is out. So I just want to make sure that you guys aren't disappointed that, oh gosh, I didn't get this meeting schedule, and I want to make sure that that's all coordinated. So how would we work that, Troy? I just want to make sure that all the meeting schedules, that everyone knows and everyone's up to speed on that.
Well, my suggestion would be the administrator gets to pick a department for the month, and that we like to show pictures and things, so dialing it up is actually complementary to it, so that you could have some questions. You got to talk about spiders tonight in Wells. That's not really the arachnoid spider, but it's the gears and things like that. So that, I would suggest, makes a lot of sense. You get to see a little bit about what their goals are, some of the projects underway, and some of the details. So I would have a department per month going through those 2 subcommittees.
I just want to make sure that all of your time is efficiently used. I don't want you to show up for a meeting and then a miscommunication and nobody shows up, and I want to make sure that everyone's time is used efficiently. So I guess, Troy, that you'll be working, is Dan your liaison for the liaison? So he will be, okay.
We'll represent council.
Okay, so he's representing council as the liaison. So I just want to make sure that the schedule works for everybody. Wood, did you have something?
So I was just thinking about the impact on something that you realize is if you're not on one of the committees, you get minutes. And then so I go to Renata and go, well, we haven't been doing it for a while, Renata. You've got your people that can do this. Take the time.
Well, I did want to ask one clarifying question. So when you talk about reviving the meetings, are you referring to having general services and public works on Monday, 1 at noon and 1 at 4 o'clock, twice a month? So we're talking 4 meetings twice a month. So, those 2 groups meeting twice a month.
That was not my intent.
Thank you. Please clarify, because we do have some staffing that would have to come forward. We do have to coordinate with the studio again to make sure we can film and broadcast. So Dan, if you want to let me know what you're thinking.
Well, we just, and this is my understanding too, I don't know what you all think, so let me know. I was just thinking the 2 meetings at noon. So we have the initial meeting, and then we have the second meeting. And I was just, because I don't think there's really enough business to have 4 meetings a month.
Right.
I think 2 would be plenty.
So the 2 that we're currently doing.
Right.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, go ahead.
The 2 that we're currently doing, but we would have those meetings even if it was only a presentation.
That's my feeling.
Does that clarify that, Renata?
Yes, thank you, and that's much easier to staff.
All right.
So remember, these meetings were basically, it was the business.
Mm-hmm.
So they would bring it to the committee saying, well, we need to bring this to the whole council. Even though the whole council reads the minutes, remember we made choices, well, that can go on consent, or let's bring it forward and let council talk about it. So that's still the workload. The workload thinned out why we got into where we're at now because of the COVID thing, right? So it's kind of work and information. I always just put the 2 together. You're learning stuff and then you can go hang out with them or talk to them about it. But there's still business that we're moving forward to council.
All right, any further discussion?
Good with that?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. So on the last one, Renata, do we want to adjourn or do we want to say anything about this meeting that we've scheduled? Probably just adjourn, and then we'll reschedule the meeting we'll schedule that meeting for Friday.
I think if we're set on having the meeting Friday at noon, you could go ahead and recess unless Mike Gridley thinks otherwise. Generally, recess just allows the community another opportunity to know we're setting another meeting. Mike, what do you say?
I don't think it really matters, so, the big thing is to give notice as required, so you can do it either way.
Yeah.
So it's okay if we just recess tonight, and then if the meeting is canceled, how do we adjourn?
That's a good point.
So I would say just adjourn. Yeah. So we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you, everyone.